Good Friday, everybody. It's June the 5th. I had to use my Ray-Ban glasses because of the glare. Ladies and gentlemen, outside, it is summer. It is summer right now in the great state of Oklahoma, despite the loss of the Thunder, all because of injuries, you know. Houston played a very rugged game with the Thunder, and unfortunately we lost, all because of those rugged plays that caused the injuries of two of our major players. Nevertheless, we are making sure that will not happen again in the next season by using very up-to-date counter-defensive tactics. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me get right into the point of discussion. And the elections are about to be finished here in the great state of Oklahoma, and many are asking me who will win. Not to mention the unbelievable victory of the Democrats in Iowa. I thought it was going to be a landslide for the president, for all the endorsements of President Trump, but Iowa was able to squeak a victory, surprising victory. So, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, I will be non-stop focused on U.S. matters, solving one problem after the other. And it is very sad that many are hoping that America would go down to oblivion, to a natural disaster. What happened with the Jeffrey Epstein stories, it's about to melt, and it's simply boy meets girl. Unfortunately, the girl meets a very wealthy American, a very wealthy bureaucrat from some parts of the world, and finally it is melting quickly down. In my opinion, it's all toilet humor. It's all hogwash, where you make a big deal with using taxpayers' money, meeting in a fancy Parisian restaurant or hotel. Ladies and gentlemen, I do that 24/7 with my clients, but obviously I don't use taxpayers' money. But government officials, let me stress this fact. Government officials must be paid more than any multinational, transnational corporation out there. I repeat, whatever pay in the private sector should be done in the public sector. Look at my country of origin, the Philippines. They pay the president of the Philippines not even a managerial job in a company called International Business Machines. What am I saying? Obviously, and I am not trying to drive at anything to certain officials back in the Philippines, but low salaries, low compensation packages lead to corruption. And I told this way back in 1988, where we had a lot of heated discussions, I will confess. And my statement was simply that. Why are government officials not being paid the same way with big-time corporations? During the time, it was only multinational companies. Now it's transnational. Now it's called quasi-transnational. It's a huge combination of corporations all over the world that are unified to make sure that your money, your investments, I don't want to say this, but is guaranteed to achieve those numbers committed. And that's why we in America, despite everything, we have minimal graft and corruption compared to other countries because of the compensation package. And I hope this will be further increased based on performance. So let me get right into the money. If Alan Greenspan continued his term, okay? If Alan Greenspan, former Fed chairman, continued his term as Fed chairman, we would not have this extreme difficulty of anemic growth. Greenspan's policies, Alan Greenspan, the former, as I said, Fed chairman, was able to gain local and global investor confidence never ever seen in the history of America. But as we say in business, we have to follow the law. So following the law means your term is cut based on executive decision. And then comes Bernanke and Paulson. And then Jerome Powell. And the list goes on. What happens? Grossly mismanaged. Too many wrong decisions. And that is why, if approved in the next 90 days by President Donald Trump, I am very confident to say that we are headed towards a $33 trillion economy. Right now, our economic growth is a very slow 2%, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. That is not enough to even pay for the debt. And the reason for the growth is because of a guided demand curve supported by President Donald Trump. But it is sad up to date. You know, the president won his landslide victory last year. I'm sorry, 2024. And it is very sad up to date. There's so much politicking. Do I agree with that? No. I think there should be a agreement between both parties, the GOP and the Blue Party, the Democrats, to control nonsense, to control bickering, which only makes China look good and other countries. The president has already won. We should support the president-elect, who was elected last November 2024. But sad to say, the bickering, the nonsense, childish, violent, un-American remarks continue. In fact, as you know, we have paid news in America to make sure that the president looks dirty, looks ignorant, looks ineffective. And who wins? China. So these distractions must be put aside and focus on the latest. As you know, the cancer drugs are coming in, very brand new. In fact, if you know the latest, please call my very own brother, who is considered the #1 Asian American medical doctor in America today, none other than a primary care physician with specialties in gastroenterology. I am referring to Dr. Martin D. Batista. And you can call him up immediately. Just tell him I sent you. Area code 580-651-6521. Area code 580-651-6521. Because there are so many breakthroughs in cancer. In fact, one of his patients had an all-time record, I believe, of having a remission, cancer of the breast. All-time high. Before it was long, now it's very, very short. That is what I'd like to focus on. I'd like to focus on cancer. I'd like to focus on solving it once and for all, even funding it on our initiative with so many billionaires in America, in Taiwan. And now China even wants to join us. And some parts of Southeast Asia. It's about to be solved. Okay? Now, what about the gross national product? Can we have the gross national product achieved next year? Of course. Of course. 5.6 to 5.85%. That is based on a long-term economic plan. It is so comprehensive that the engine growth of finance, and more importantly, the Magnificent Six, okay, will combine with other ailing industries in order for them to achieve their gross margins and control the inflationary costs. And with the approval of our new Fed chairman, the very open-minded, the great Kevin Warsh, who has new plans in attacking inflation, which is our #1 headache, will be solved as soon as possible. Because we will be very engaging, meaning to say we will be very supportive of these policies so that the market can react fast and lower down that inflation to 1%. 2% is objective, but you know me, I always go aggressive with numbers. 1%. All because of our concerted effort and following the proposed plan in the great state of Oklahoma. Let's make Oklahoma the model economy of the United States and the world. We are a surplus economy, ladies and gentlemen, in Oklahoma. And I will give you a video, unbelievable video of all the streets practically in greater Oklahoma City being repaved, being added on to avoid traffic, to make smooth rides from your current home to wherever in Oklahoma, greater Oklahoma City. New water systems are being done. Lighting, new lighting systems are being built. there is a new commercial residential complex in every square mile. Where can you find that in any part of the world? Yes, right here in Oklahoma. And I will invite you, ladies and gentlemen, in a medical and business tourism, if you program to be done in the next 5 years in the Midwest, starring the great state of Oklahoma. So I will be inviting you guys to go here, invest, relax, enjoy a Thunder game, and appreciate the relaxed atmosphere of Oklahoma living. And I'd like to invite these tourists to make it a habit to go to Oklahoma to relax, to entertain yourself, to taste the best steaks in the world, and more importantly, our warm Midwestern hospitality. It's about time you buy your cowboy hat again, because we will have a rodeo in Guymon, Oklahoma. We will have super entertainment in so many places in the Midwest, including Texas. And above all, when you go back home to your mother country, we made a big, big contribution to the upliftment of your life, not only in business, but in your health, in your family's welfare, and above all, your total well-being. So ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be part of this business and medical entertainment tourism campaign, all you have to do is give me a call direct. I have my Viber set forth. You can go on the Viber app and call up simply area code 405-503-8511. So again, to get away this distractions of Epstein and so forth and so on, one thing that is very, very clear, ladies and gentlemen, is we are redefining how a person should live. Prosperous will die more than 100 years old and will avoid all of this nonsense, all of this negativity, which is actually, in my opinion, two things: a toilet humor, or just a way of distracting your life to make it miserable. So the Prosperity Channel will guide you to this path of longevity, high quality longevity, high quality prosperity, by following the path to this new nirvana, this new paradise, which is more pragmatic, and in the long term you want your kids, your inheritors, to follow suit, so that whatever inheritance they're going to get will be made sure to last for generations to come. So ladies and gentlemen, let me get right into the business part of Oklahoma. Governor Drummond was about to become governor, as early as 2 months ago, but because of the 48 hours ago of potential governor, Rick Mazzei, I'd like to be very sure on that. I'm sorry, Mike Mazzei. Things became complicated because of the endorsement by the president. The numbers for Mike Mazzei surged in the polls. Now they are neck and neck with Governor-to-be Drummond. And then there is now a surge of McCall, and things are even more complicated because of this last-minute surge by McCall. As they say in politics, the last 7 days is an eternity. And the magic number is about 1.8 million. That's my opinion, to be on the safe side in order to win. And of course, there are other gubernatorial candidates in Oklahoma. But nevertheless, what the endorsement of the president did to Mike Mazzei was really incredible. So the Drummond forces must compose themselves and make sure they do some countermeasures. And number one would be to focus on the economy. Because what the Drummond campaign team has been doing was to focus on legal battles, focus on the Chinese groups who are destroying the state, to focus on these insurance companies and other companies who are destroying the Oklahoma way of life. And the only way Drummond can gain back his momentum is to focus on making the economy sustainable at least in the next 5 years or more. To make it a surplus economy, to grow the economy, to take away property taxes, reduce sales taxes, reduce income taxes, reduce estate taxes, or any tax for that matter that will make businesses ultimately go down. So the Drummond forces must shift immediately from legal to economy to get back the votes. On the other hand, McCall is trying his best to regain back some footing with what he has done to the Oklahoma business community because of his banking expertise, but he simply does not have the campaign team that can make that happen. So it is my strong opinion that what will happen in the next 8 days would be the neck-and-neck race between Mazzei, Mike Mazzei, and Gentner Drummond, who is now, by the way, Mr. Drummond is now the current Attorney General. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to end this particular segment of our Friday, June 5 YouTube channel, the Prosperity Channel, and I'd like to personally greet my brother in the Philippines, attorney Wito Bautista, very happy birthday. And I hope you can come back to the Midwest and enjoy our great Thunder games and more, because the invitation will be global, and we are projecting high net worth tourists to come to the state of Oklahoma and have great fun with our casinos and more. Again, this is Gavin Batista. Hit me a subscribe, a like, and I will see you soon. Thank you. Good evening. This is your host at 405-503-8511.